and welcome everyone. Welcome tonight for another Mugi's Primetime. And of course, I say tonight because I'm in EU, but like for NA people, it can be noon or the afternoon. I don't know. I'm not super good with time zone. But tonight we have a treat. We have Seismic, the mid laner from Even Worse Timing, that is joining us today. And is the mid laner of Even Worse Timing, like I said, the number one seed for the tournament tomorrow. Of course, like everyone in the chat already know that we have a wonderful tournament tomorrow afternoon, sorry. But yeah, and here it will be the opportunity to discuss a little bit with Seismic and have a little bit of information on this wonderful player. And then in the second part of this talk show, we are going to go into a Scream review with Seismic. He selected a special game against No Communication, which is the 8th seed of the tournament, and that we are going to reviewing together. How are you doing tonight, Seismic?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to answer all the questions, especially go over a review. I've sat every morning watching your reviews, so it's exciting to, actually be here with you and, defend myself a little bit. You already know.
Yeah, sometimes I can be a little bit harsh. I do try to always be objective, but yeah, when I see something I don't like, I don't really shy about it. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to learn a lot also from your point of view, because sometimes, yeah, I kind of miss all the view because I'm not a player playing the game. And so that will be like very, very nice to have you to defend yourself, like you said. So let's go into like mainly like the question. And of course, like the simple question I kind of ask like everyone at the beginning is, what got you into Predecessor? Like, why are you part of the scene right now? Like, what is your story regarding Predecessor, basically?
So when I was young, I played FPS games. I played them competitively. I played a little bit of CSGO, but I was pretty bad. So I moved over to a small game called AVA, which was, it's long dead now. But I ended up playing with a player named Skadoodle in that game, who was a CSGO pro, and he really opened my eyes to more of the thought behind your gameplay when you're trying to play things competitively. I shifted over to League in high school. I ended up getting Challenger for 4 seasons, and then I kind of stepped away. I worked for a while, and then I, tried Paragon when it came out. I played for 3 months. The game was great, but I hated the item system. I felt like it was the most dumbed down, watered thing to ever touch a MOBA, especially after playing League, where I thought it was really intricate and all your decisions really mattered. And then Fault came out, and it had a traditional item system, which was pretty much copy and pasted from League. And although the gameplay was, let's be honest, it was terrible, I ended up playing that for a while. Within that smaller community, which is now part of the Pred community pretty much, I made a name for myself over there. And by the time Pred came out, I was already a hot commodity. So I was able to step right in and start playing competitively, which was a lot of fun and has been a lot of fun. I hope it continues to be a lot of fun.
So basically, already like a lot of experience when it comes to the MOBA genre and also like the competitive world. You're always like been navigating towards like this type of gameplay. So no surprise that you're performing very, very well currently. And so when it comes to Predecessor, what is like so far like basically like your story with the game itself? Like which encounter did you made, like which team did you participate on, like did you already have like some victory under your belt, this type of things?
So I played in what was like essentially a solo pickup tournament. The name escapes me now, but I ended up winning that under the name Six Slayers because I was targeting 6. I ended up playing on Royalty. We won 2 tournaments. We won PCC 3 and an Aurora tournament. And then we ended up splitting off from that team. And right now I'm playing for EWT. But like initially coming in, I was playing with like Wangle and Blue Jay. I was on a team called Slime's Temp. It was a lot of fun. It was more of a meme team, but it was, it was the first step towards getting something together. And then, like I said, Province pretty much just started bringing pieces together to make Royalty. I was able to pull in 6 after a little bit of banter. And yeah, now it seems like me and him are on another journey to a championship. So we're going to keep those coming.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to like the tournament tomorrow, but first like a little bit of more build up before we get there and before you can like start basically like giving your hot takes on who is going to win the tournament tomorrow. But so you mentioned like the PCC3 with Royalties team, and obviously like winning this tournament, and like any like specific things about how like it was to build a team, play with the team, or any like specific moments that you remember for that tournament that like positive, negative, like that you would like to share. It's kind of like also the opportunity with this type of interview to give like a little bit of behind the scenes stuff that can like make everyone looks like a little bit more human in the end.
Yeah, so I would just like to lead with saying like, every team has its problems. Every team is going to have its problems. Not every piece meshes with every other piece. And with that, so did Royalty. There's obviously inner clashes, and there's reasons why the team's not a team anymore.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you're going into these tournaments or you're building teams, it's really important to just make sure that you have, I would say, every personality type. You need the type of people that can kind of express themselves just very strongly. You need other people that can step in and say, hey, you need to not be so strong. And then you need those people that are a little more reserved, but when they do speak up, their words should matter a little bit more. And, you know, every piece of Royalty had that. You know, Six is a coach for an Apex team. He's a very vocal person, very strong voice. So was Dare to Care with his, you know, past Smite experience. So that was, you know, it was really easy to work through issues when you have two strong personalities. I like to pretend like I'm a mediator of sorts, even though I'm a strong voice too. And then, you know, Province is the type of person that can parse through issues, deal with them. He's very, he's number based. He's that type of person where he's in his own head until he comes up with a conclusion, then he brings it to the table. And North is our quiet guy that, you know, he was there for the ride. You know, listen,
Okay.
he got the what is it, MVP? I don't want to say anything about North, but I don't think he's gonna get this tournament. You know what I mean?
Okay. Like there is like a little bit of trying to get the MVP for his side, but it's surprising like to see that North is apparently like a quiet guy when like we see him like pop off so hard in every single match he plays almost. So apparently like he's just doing his own stuff and he's cooking on his side, and suddenly like he's like 8-0 on Calari, and you're like, what this guy was doing for the past 3 minutes?
Exactly.
And so like all those like discussion we were talking about, like each team has their problems, that can bring me to like another question that I think can be interesting. Like you have some experience with different teams and you have played like with a lot of top players in the scene currently, and if you were willing to give like some advice for players that are looking to get into the competitive scene, like what would you tell them about like what is the most important to find like teammate with you are going to mesh with? Like what is the most important for you in meshing with teammates in your opinion?
So you need to find people that not only game-wise you can talk to, but outside of the game, you need to be able to express yourself unfiltered. And a lot of the time that comes down to not only you, but how your teammates take you. Making sure that when you're expressing an idea, you're doing it in a not overly negative way, but you also can't be, you know, topping everything with cherries all the time. Sometimes issues do just need to get fixed. And you need to find solutions for those problems. So if you're looking to get on a team and you're a new player, especially in the scene, you need to, you know, really be able to have your own strong opinions, but you need to be able to back them up with thought behind it. You can't just have an opinion, force it on other people, and then expect them to just go along with it. Everybody that's going to be playing competitive has their own ideas on how this game is supposed to be played. And you have to be able to talk to every type of person in their way to get them to understand your side, to really get a team to mesh and make sense. If you can't do that, personally, I don't know how you could play any game competitively. You need to be a person's person. You need to be able to talk to every type of person.
So basically like what I hear, like there is kind of a mixture of like you need your own confidence in yourself, like you need to know that you're a good player and you have like your own vision of like how the game should be played, but also you need to find a way to adapt this vision a little bit and like make like the sum of the 5 people's vision in the end like works together, and then like you can like really enjoy the game together.
It's really crazy. You know, on some of the teams that I've been on, and it's only been a short period of time, there's some drastically different ideas of what
Yeah.
people think need to happen to fix whatever issue's been identified. And you can parse through all these ideas through scrims, which is something that I truly believe in. Your scrims don't matter. Like the whole, and this is a league meme, but the scrim bucks, you can't cash them in on anything. If you lose every scrim, but you show up to tournament day and you win, what do the scrims mean? So when you're going in and you're scrimming, it should be looking for the solution to your problem. And then when you have that solution, it's just about implementing it consistently.
And so that's a good point and a good transition. It's exactly also about like screams, like you said, like as you said, like screams result don't really matter. But so I would assume that something still matter by playing screams, which is probably like to practice something in specific and like how do you yourself as a player approach screams? And then we can like expand a little bit about like how your current team approach screams currently as well.
So me as a player, most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, whenever I play on a competitive team, one of the first things that I do is I take draft away from everybody, and it's my job to build a comp. I want to know what my players or the players in the team really think is strong in the specific matchups, but it does come down to experimenting how comps as a whole work together in scrims. I'm sorry. And then go ahead, repeat the question.
Yeah, so it was like what you were looking as a player, like what do you were looking screams for as a player, since it's not like about the final result. And so you said like first, apparently like you're taking care of the draft because you want to use scream as a way to experiment like composition together. And so like maybe like you have a little bit more like on a personal level, is the team like focusing on specific aspect of like the game, or it's just like this mainly thing like we want to try a comp and see if it works together?
So it's really difficult because each individual team, at least right now, plays in a very specific way. So when you're going into a scrim set, it really depends on who you're playing against and what you're working for. Each team is going to pick holes in your team in a different way, and you need to find a way to plug those holes while also poking holes in them. So, I already brought up draft. It really does come down to specific comps work a lot better against specific teams, while other comps I'll never play into other teams. But it also is based on what they're playing. When I'm playing scrims personally, like the one thing that I'm looking for is mid lane 2v2, rotation timings, and understanding. If you watch back a lot of scrims, you'll see a lot of teams make the same positional mistakes over and over, and actually being able to implement that into my scrims, because I know a lot of teams right now in the scene are playing the tournament just like how they play scrims. So it's a lot easier to kind of break teams down, especially in that environment, because they're playing fairly one-dimensionally.
Okay, that's a very interesting take. And I would like to go further like into this draft part, because like personally as a coach myself on the side, I also like believe like you should arrive like with scream with already like kind of an idea of what you will want to work on, and also like have an idea of like you're facing that team in advance, usually explain. So maybe like you already have some ideas of what you should be drafting and what you want to try against that team. And so like how do you approach that draft phase like for yourself as well? Like you said, like the draft phase is something for me for my and I kind of decide. Of course I get input from like I would assume like you're gonna get input from Shin to like what are the offlaner matchup, because you can't like know all the knowledge by yourself. But like how do you prepare a little bit for those things? Do you just like go on from like your team knowledge, or do you also like scout enemy team, these type of like things that you're trying to just get like an edge from this draft phase immediately?
So specifically for me, I spend a good amount of time looking into other teams, watching their scrims, seeing how certain picks function within their team. Like a good example is, Kalari. A lot of teams don't play Kalari. The teams that do, they do specific things at specific times with that pick specifically. So when they pick it, it's going to be something that I'm pointing out and saying, hey, this is what's going to go on, this is what's happening, and we need to be aware and counter this thing. And you can pick that a lot with specific characters. There's a few mid laners in the PCC that when they pick Gideon, they do the same mistakes over and over, and it's very easy to consistently abuse those mistakes. So the first step is identifying those mistakes, and then also kind of remembering that this is the person that does these mistakes, and we need to be targeting this person because of these mistakes. So, I would say I spend, especially around tournament time, probably about 10 to 20 hours a week looking into other teams, making sure I have a consistent idea of the teams. I have a little notebook with what these teams are looking to do with these picks, and then just trying to exploit those picks.
And so that's a very good point that I want to bring here, because like, of course, I'm following also like all the teams screaming, especially for my content, and I've found out that in terms of actual like practice time, even worse timing didn't had like as many screams as the other team in the tournament. Like when you compare like Professor that has been screaming like crazy, over 50 screams in like since the seeding round is like actually like a humongous number. But here we can see that apparently like behind the scene, like behind what people can't see, there is like a lot of work being put on. And I would like to ask you, like, if a player is trying, like you said that you had get like some experience about like a competitive mindset from Skadoodle like very early on, and like I think that's something like a lot of players kind of forget is like there is time that you put playing the game, but there is time that you should put outside of playing the game to prepare yourself to play the game. And in your experience and in your view, like, do you have like an idea of like the type of ratio that people should be looking on? Because of course, only theory is not enough, but only practice is not enough either.
So for me personally, I feel like I have a pretty good grip on the game mechanically. I don't think that, and this might be somewhat of a hot take, but I don't think that the pubs currently, the matchmaking state, really allow you to practice anything specifically to you. The only time you're really going to get any solid practice is in a scrim environment. And like I said, even then, a lot of the times you're only working on a specific thing. So it's really hard to find that sweet spot of play versus theory. But obviously, if you're looking to break into the scene, you should be dominating the majority of your pub matches. Even if your teammates are failing and you lose, it'll be obvious to anybody that has any kind of competitive eye that you're a potential talent. When it comes to theory, I really do think that a lot of the teams right now don't really have an interest in it or see the value in it. I don't know. I talk to the majority of the teams. There's probably one or two teams that I'll talk to, but I haven't heard any of these intellectual discussions on what a team is doing, why and when. It's more so just like, this is happening to us. What do we do? And that you're already a step removed. You don't have to be a part of the equation yourself to break down and understand what another team is doing or why. And being able to parse that and actually come to a conclusion for an answer is what's going to make your team better versus the other team that might be playing more than you. So for me, I would say you should be playing just to stay relevant. But I don't know how much you're gaining right now in the ecosystem available to you to warrant putting in a ton of time or practice hours in comparison to like actually watching what other people are doing and being able to exploit them for the win.
Okay, that's a very interesting take. I think like maybe also like there is like maybe a component since like you're already a very well established player, very confident about like your mechanical skills and how the team is operating. Then like you're maybe also a team that can like take better advantages of that scouting in a sense, because when you're still like struggling on getting the piece of your team working together, like then it's harder to exploit those like knowledge that you're gaining. And so maybe it's not that like I don't know, you have more experience talking with people, so I'm just like throwing out there that it's maybe like not people don't really think about it, is just that they have their hand full already and so they don't have like spare room to start thinking about it. Or it's maybe like you said, like maybe they just like don't even think of the game at that level yet.
My answer to that would be, if your hands are full because your team's not working, this might be tough love, but at some point you got to empty your hands and find something else that can hold something for you. Because if you got to hold your whole team's hand throughout the whole process, you're not going to get very far at actually being able to parse through and find the problems that you need to fix. I'm all for new teams popping up and trying to figure through those problems, but there are specific players on specific teams that if you had someone else, you might be able to work through and actually fix these problems. I mean, and I'm a shit talker, so I don't really care. You look at FFG, massive upgrades on their team. The player quality in the positions that they move to, that's gonna be a hard team for Rogue to beat that day.
Okay.
And actually being able to, now they have these pieces, they can actually think about what Rogue's doing and find out how to beat Rogue. Not just, hey, this is happening in this lane. What do? We can't fix it because it's a player diff. Sometimes you got to find a player that can match the other players on the table before you actually start to break down and figure out how to actually win games.
And so, like, basically what I hear from all this discussion is teams that are going to face even worse timing tomorrow and on Sunday, because like, who knows, maybe you get eliminated tomorrow and you don't even beat no communication, but I will see, like, what is your view on that. But, like, team that are going to face against even worse timing, probably if you have, like, some cracks and some weakness, they're gonna, like, just, like, pressure on them. And but I think, like, we need this type of team in the scene, because, like, if you don't, like, pressure on the mistake of enemy team, they're not gonna fix it. And overall, like, probably after you destroy, like, a couple team, if that happens, like, they will, like, either explode or either say, like, oh, we have those issues, we need to fix them now. And so that kind of transitioned me towards, like, to the tournament of tomorrow. So for those, like, watching, of course, like, probably everyone know, but Seismic is the mid laner for Even Worse Timing, number 1 seed in the tournament. They win their match in the seeding round pretty convincingly. And so I would love to ask you, what is your opinion on the final result of the tournament?
So in my opinion, I think it's going to be R&R and EWT in the finals.
Okay.
I think North is honestly going to ride his team all the way to the finals. He is probably the best jungler right now in the scene. The pressure that he puts out, it's really abusive, and I don't think a lot of teams are actually ready to deal with assassin picks, especially since they can't pick them themselves, or at least not to the same degree. Anybody can play Fang now, but if you can't actually get an execute off, what's the point in picking a character? But yeah, I would say those two. Like I already said once, I wouldn't be surprised if FFG beat Rogue, but let's be honest, FFG, you don't stand a chance against EWT.
Okay, that's like, I really like the take about rest and relaxation, because personally, like, after watching their game, I haven't, like, watched as many games as I would have loved, because, like, too many screams and you can't, like, you have only, like, a certain limit of time in your life. But
Professor's just making that real hard for you.
Yeah, but at least I didn't have any problem of, like, looking for content during this week, so that was wonderful. But I feel like the loss of Narik, like, actually hurt rest and relaxation quite a lot. And, like, if Narik was still there, like, I would be like, yeah, definitely, like, rest and relaxation, big contender. I feel like with the loss of Narik, they kind of fold on, and, like, in this bottom part of the bracket, like, like, to be fair, I find that very hard to determine which team out of the 4 is going to go there to the grand final.
So I will say, for me personally, Narik was an absolutely awesome player. But something that Brandon does for the team that Narik didn't do is giving North a winning mid lane to play rounds. His laning is significantly better than Narik. While I would say Narik is a better team fighter, getting North the advantages that Brandon's able to get him, I think makes it even more scary if that team starts snowballing on you early. Before, mid lane was kind of a dead lane, if we're being honest. But the second they got into team fights, they were very structured. You're going to see a lot more scuffed team fights, but they're going to be a lot stronger while they're scuffed. So it's going to be harder to play for the other teams as well.
Okay, that's but as we all knew, like, the tomorrow's match are going to be pretty exciting. Like, from what you're telling me, Seismic, it's going to be even more exciting than what I anticipated. That you're, like, telling that probably, like, Rogue against FFG is, like, definitely, like, also something that people need to be wary about and look for. And here, like, I was, like, kind of feeling like with the loss of Narik and, like, Professor, like, putting up, like, a huge amount of work to be ready for that tournament, that they were, like, kind of offsetting that second seed against 7th seed. But apparently, like, from, like, in the mind of, like, one of the top player in the game, it's actually, like, probably a rest and relaxation that's still, like, definitely a contender at that point. So I can't wait to watch all those matches tomorrow on Prime Championship Circuit Twitch channel. That's gonna be like a blast.
I would say just watch the offlane matchup. That determines a lot between that Professors and R&R game. And I think if R&R pulls out the Professors victory, I think they run it all the way to the finals.
Okay, so definitely like thinking that the part of basically Dirty Lake and the Boys and Pink Ravens are like kind of like a lower city team in your eyes for that tournament.
So for me, it's a little hard because I like all of the guys on Pink Ravens a lot. I think having Empty in mid lane is the biggest upgrade you could look for in any team in reality. But I also know he's been having issues. I don't know how often he's been able to play. I don't know if the team has been able to actually practice with him. But I mean, hey, if they've all got Smurf accounts and they're doing it behind the scenes and no one knows about it, they could come out swinging hard. So I wouldn't write the team off, especially with the upgrade with Empty coming in.
Okay, so yeah, it's still like kind of like you were saying, like a lot of team have like strong potential, but they also have their weaknesses, and it's like team that know how to exploit these weaknesses for you, like gonna get ahead. But it feels like all those teams in the lower bracket are not yet in that like level of like analyzing the enemy team, and so sometimes it's just like a matter, is that match, do we have our strengths that are shining and our weaknesses that are kind of hidden, or is it the other way around, and it can be anyone's game at that point.
Yeah.
So that's so basically like even worse timing winning the whole things. No question asked here for Seismic.
Only because I'm on there, that's all I have to say. The mid lane gap is just going to be huge in every game.
Okay, so you don't even need your teammate, but you were telling other people that you need good teammate to get there. So like what should we follow, like the cocky Seismic or like the realistic one?
Well, like that's the problem, right? Is if you doubt me and you don't gank my lane 80 times, I'm gonna run away with the game. If you put all your pressure on me, I'll let my teammates carry me. They're all insane players, so I have no problem eating the pressure and just tossing my lane. But I also know that I've got a side lane, I've got a dual lane that are already beating the piss out of everybody else on the map. So if you don't want to give me the opportunity to, don't. But if you want to, I will. I'll beat your team and by myself.
It's also like kind of bring me another question about like how teams dynamics works. Like exactly what you were saying here is when you have like every single person in your team that is like a strong player that can like kind of pop out. In a sense, like does that remove pressure on you to not be like a star player and you can just like play your game and you know that sometimes you're gonna have bad days, but your teammates are gonna cover for them?
So, harping back, there's specific teams that focus specific lanes regardless of the team that they're playing against. It could be to, prop up their star players. It could be to plug those weaknesses that they feel in those lanes. But a lot of the time, game plans for teams are very, very one-dimensional. If there's specific teams that love to sit mid with their jungle for hours on end. And, if you just don't feed and your side lanes are good, they're always going to fall behind and you're always going to win the game. It's the same thing with dual lane. People love camping Pablo. But if you love camping Pablo, I'm solo killing your mid laner every time. So you need to find a way to plug all of your holes. And I think a lot of the other teams right now just have too many holes to plug. So it really comes down to, are they able to stop the constant onslaught that my team's able to output while also making sure that they can maintain a lead without fumbling it.
So now, like I'm like getting curious in a sense because like there is a lot of strong word coming out of you tonight, and like personally, like from like the performance I've seen of Even Worse Timing on PCC4, I feel like was stellar. Like I felt like the team was 3 months ahead of every other team in this tournament. They were just like, in the end, they just had like one game plan, but nobody was prepared for it. And they just like executed every single game and they just like won out of it. And they changed completely the way people were playing Predecessor at that moment. Like they were so far ahead of the meta that was like very, very beautiful to see. In my opinion, like the change on Even Worse Timing felt like that we weren't like at the same level. From all you're telling me tonight, no, I'm hopeful that I'm going to see like as a prestation that is like at least as good as the one we have seen on PCC4. And so like here I'm going to hope that I'm not gonna get disappointed and that I see like those like little specific things that you were talking about, because that's what I love to analyze afterwards. And so like you see like Seismic, like he was with his notebook, and he know like that mistake, and so they take advantage of it. Like simple thing, like for instance, I remember one game, like the mid laner started to always ward the 2 camp. And then there is a team that at the 2 camp, they put their jungler there and they kill the mid laner immediately. These type of things. And so like I can't wait to see more of that in the scene, because when we move further into the competitive scene. So yeah.
Yeah. Recognizing patterns and exploiting them is super important. And I hope other people have got their notebooks, because I've noticed a lot of patterns lately, and it's gonna be a fun tournament.
Yeah. Also, I think like it's probably like for a guy like you, probably like the best PCC to participate, because since there is like this important cash prize, I also feel like that teams have put a lot more work and a lot more scrims, but that also mean a lot more like content to analyze and get your notebook on. So probably it's like the one that you enjoy the most preparing in a sense.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? You know, everybody's getting a lot more practice, they're getting a lot better, but you know, those weaknesses are a little more easy to spot and exploit. So like I said, I think it's going to be probably the best tournament yet, but I think that's going to keep going on. Every tournament after the last is going to keep getting better. And I'm just excited to show everybody. And yeah.
That's wonderful. So I think like we kind of cover like most of the topic of the interview. And I think like we can like switch now to the Scream review. So if you can give a little bit of context of like if you remember when the Scream has been played, in which context, and what like also like what I kind of like with that is like you said, like Screams, the result is not what matter, is more like what you get out of them. And so I kind of love to be able to educate a little bit the scene, because like still a lot of players are like, we need to win every single Scream. And so like what is your thought process, so we can like help elevate the whole level together.
Yeah, so the one we're going to be watching is actually a loss that we had against Noko. I think it was either 2 nights ago, maybe it was last night. I'm not too sure. But you can see in the game, a lot of their picks are things that I would expect their players to play. And then we're trying to essentially force my dual lane, into an awkward position to see how they actually interact with the lane that we gave them. A lot of things that are going on in the scrim, even though it was a loss, I think is a massive net win for us, because we know exactly what we need to do against their team comp in order to just snowball games. Mhm. Yep. And then we also wanted to more integrate Gadget into the comps, and actually figuring out where and when she's going to be strong within objective fights. So pairing it with the Richter and Decker was something that I thought was going to be very usable.
Can we go for that one? Is audio working here for people in the chat? We don't have the camera anymore, but let's see if audio is working. Okay, well, little backup plan. We still like see everything now. Sorry about that. Of course, it had to have some hiccups. So we were talking like, I guess like I will ask you to resume what you were telling. Sorry about that, Seismic. But so we were telling about the fact that we do have even worse timing that is trying to put their own dual lane into like a difficult position. And you can see here we have the Rictor and the Decker facing like the Bellica and the Drongo. And building on top of that, then you were saying, Seismic.
We're essentially just looking to see how and when the Decker Richter gadget is going to function around objective fights, and when we actually have the ability to force them, versus when their dual lane, which should have a disadvantage leading lane, is going to kind of get negated by the combo. So, did audio die again? I don't know why you're cracking up still.
It's okay. And like Spuds the Tuber is like actually saying a good point. He keeps seeing me ranting in my morning stream that I don't see enough gadget cage into Tesla Dome. It's actually like very simple. Am I gonna see one in that game or not? To be fair, with Pablo being the gadget, I don't expect to see it happening.
Yeah. With Pablo being Decker, it's definitely something we got to work on. But that's one of the reasons why we wanted to get that game in, so we can have that discussion and make sure that on game day we're actually, doing it correctly. So
okay.
I don't believe you're gonna see a great Decker cage in the gadget, but that's why we have to practice the comp. That way we can bring it out.
Well, tomorrow I have the top 8 team in the game, like facing against each other. I'm just gonna ask for like one time at least, people. Like I'm not asking for the moon, and we'll see if it happens.
We just gotta get Vectron on the Decker.
Yeah, and then that should be like easier. I assume like carry player are more in their own world, while the support is more vocal about using his spell because he's more able to, like he's more accustomed to all of that. So let's jump into the game. So we have the beginning with Seismic going on the gadget. So the matchup is against an Howitzer. I've seen like Howitzer being picked quite a lot recently by a couple of certain mid laner that do love like the Howitzer pick. But it was like not really like interested by a lot of people for a long time. So what do you think about that matchup, Seismic?
So for me specifically, I mean, it's a big meme. I'm a pretty terrible Howitzer. But I'm also the type of player that puts myself in bad situations and tries to play my way out of them. With a hitbox as big as that robot hamster, it's definitely not for me. And you'll see too, like a lot of the mid laners that play, even if they have a good performance, in my opinion, the hitbox makes that character super difficult to like positionally play, especially at a high level. I think he's good. I think he can be good, but it's a real team effort to make it good.
Yeah. Especially, I think like there is like some pick like immediately if Rictor is in the enemy team, suddenly like your Howitzer is like super vulnerable, or the Decker, like the stun is super easy to land and you can die quite quickly.
Yeah.
So when it comes to this early trade, like I guess you're like, of course, experienced mid laner, last hit first all the time, then you can box, it's good, but you need to keep your last hit count high, I would assume.
Yeah, and I would also suggest in this specific matchup, although you have the gadget passive to trade around, actually auto trading in the matchup isn't that great unless you can bait him into something like this. So he's going to be at a disadvantage pushing into the next wave, even though I'm low HP, just because of jungle pathing and how Chimera works. If he doesn't get boop level 2, it's a real struggle for that matchup.
But to be fair, when we are Howitzer, I feel like we should always get boop level 2. It's so strong to be aggressive, to be defensive. Slow grenade are nice, but they're kind of limited in a sense.
Yeah, it's a great area of control spell, but when you can just walk through the area, it's not that big. Obviously, I got chunked here, so it's just an early back for a secondary mana crystal, more spamability. I'm going to end up going into Rod, but when you're poked halfway against a Rampage Howie, sometimes you just got to give up the early lane. And I would say Howie in general does outtrade the gadget. So.
I guess like you're waiting for a little bit of levels to be able to clear the wave better, and then like you're more activated on the map. And we have like one first blood. That was like, I think on the dual lane side we can see that Bellica has been killed by the dual lane.
Yeah, so the early combo of like Decker Stun and the Richter Pool pretty much guarantees it. I would say they're at a disadvantage because of the fact that you have the Bellica to pretty much counter engage everything as long as she's stepping up. And with a small character model, it's pretty easy to dodge the things you need to dodge. It's just about doing it consistently.
Yeah. So here we can see that they got like a little priority, but we have like the gank from 6. Not much you can follow that up. Simply a little bit of poke, I assume here. No kill, real kill potential in that situation.
Yeah, the biggest struggle with Gadget is really just her early laning. It doesn't have a ton of pressure or anything that you can individually do. To get in range of Speed Gate early on, usually you have to do that into a Bellica. But a lot of other mid laners right now also aren't even playing the Bellica, so you're not really going to see that matchup too often.
And so basically like here in that game you were telling like you were looking to fight around objective with the Rictor, potential rotation from the Steel. And so I guess like you're a very crucial point of all that situation, because if we look in terms of damage, like with the camera, Rictor, Steel and Decker, like damage is gonna be pretty limited, and so like you need to like basically never get picked before objective, otherwise your team is kind of cooked. And so that put a lot of pressure on yourself. And so does that affect the way you play? Like you play more passive until objective arrive, or do you just like keep your own self and keep being aggressive when you can?
I would say more specifically for me, although yes, my positioning is going to matter a lot more, I also need to use these games to kind of figure out what I can get away with versus what I should be doing. That's just a big thing that I believe in when it comes to scrims, is like actually seeing how far you can step up into specific comps and take advantage of it. This game I do get picked before objectives, I think 2 or 3 times. But we're usually able to turn it around just based off of other positional errors that other teams are making. When it comes to like actual lane phase, like I said, I think the gadget in the Howie is tradable around your passive timer, but generally you do just lose the trade. So I'm not looking to play too aggressively into the lane unless it's just, you know, free for me. I have an idea of where the rampage is because of the 2 camp ward, so I can kind of play into the Howie. Obviously, I'm eating the food, but it gives you a lot more time to actually pay attention to what's going on.
Oh, and you're not doing the NA flash, which is like you wait for the last second, you flash and you get killed by red buff.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that, right? It's kind of silly to just let yourself die so early on. Now I die here though, don't worry.
So that was like a good landmine, like you tried to dodge it, but it was like well placed and put you like perfectly where they want to. They still like take forever
Actually,
to kill you.
I think I get out here. I'm pretty sure I get out here.
Wow.
Oh wait, no, I eat the rock, it's so bad. But yeah, like actually understanding like to blow flash, and then obviously I made the mistake of re-aggressing in the lane instead of just backing off, resetting. But again, these are things that you have to try to figure out what Mav is going to do when you do these things before you just give up the lane and reset. There's a lot of junglers that don't regank, or if they do regank, they'll just sit against your fog forever. So being able to take away the resources when you can and understanding who's going to commit to what matters a lot when you're, you know, playing out specific lanes, especially in matchups like these.
And that's like you bring a good point, but it's something that I find like is kind of surprising to me. Is like you said, like most junglers don't really regank. When you're in the game, that flash is for everyone, and so like sometimes you see a lot of jungler that just like go around and gank a lane, then another lane, and they spend like their whole early game just getting flashes off cooldown. But actually reganking a lane that you got the flash is like, then the flash is not there anymore, and that's actually like a pretty good gank.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think if you get a flash, you should waste a little more extra time there. You can pressure out mid laners. But you know, a lot of people don't, they view the game in a very like, in 2 different ways. There's one way where you have to gank constantly all the time, and then there's another way where you can't gank, you have to farm because you're falling behind on camps. Trying to find that sweet spot and actually making it make sense matters a lot.
So here it's exactly what you were talking about, like trading with the Howitzer is actually like very hard. We can see that he's like dominating. He actually have like 3 abilities that can poke you out of range when you basically only have sticky mine realistically, and so naturally like you can't really outtrade the howitzer. But we can see that apparently like with the speed gate and the bump and the like bump in the base, backing and coming back to lane is not that big of a deal actually.
Yeah, it's the same as Gideon. If you get shoved out of lane and you have teleport, you can double teleport to lane and get there in like 3/4 the time. So losing early isn't that big of a deal. But that's also why you play a little more aggressively on Gideon, because you have that freedom to leave and come right back. Gadget kind of has the same thing with the speed gate. And I mean, I'm pretty sure at this point, even though I've been shoved out of lane now, I think 4 times, I'm relatively even in CS, which is going to be the only thing that's dictating where I'm at in items. Yeah, 76 to 75. And I mean, I don't think I've been able to shove him out yet. And now I'm getting ganked by their solo with him as well. So it's really just about being able to absorb the pressure. Although I died, it's kind of like, whatever.
And every time, like as a mid laner, if you get gank and you don't die, and you don't like here, you don't even lose HP. Like in a sense, it's a net win for your team because they spend time on you that they don't spend somewhere else, and you didn't lose anything for it.
Yeah, especially in like a crunch steal lane where the crunch should be pulling the steal, has way more freedom to move around the map. If you can just waste that time, I mean, why not waste it?
They won't know what hit 'em.
So here, like, we kind of try to go for like a very aggressive kill, but unfortunately you're a little bit too far away from the test to be able to follow up the shield slam with the Tesla Dome. We still try to go for it, and is it like more like yeah.
So there I would say, in general, the howitzer wasting ult is a net win, just because you have the ability to, you see how far back he has to play in this trade. He loses all safety when he goes up in the air. So even going forward, I now have the ability to play aggressive in this lane in comparison to before, where I can't really drop to 1/4 HP without him just going up and nuking me. So with that not available, I now have, I think it's like 1 minute and 30 seconds to pretty much just play free in my lane. Even if I get ganked by the jungler, it's not like they have any kind of stick ability in comparison to my speed gate, where I can just leave or drop ult and just walk around inside of it.
And here we can see like already like what you were talking about like you go into the scrim with some IDs, and here we can see like Shin rotated to mid lane at 10 minutes, which is pretty early for an offlaner to try to force something up. You force something up, you get the kill, you force 2 people out, and you force the Fang-Tooth afterwards. And that was like kind of like one of the goal of like these scrims. And you can see like they like Shin rotated, the gank wasn't perfect at all, but you just send it in because that's what you were willing to practice.
Yeah, and a lot of the time too, you see a lot of soul laners not leave for the early objectives, when in reality they don't have to leave, they just have to show presence. You can still be farming mid lane, especially if you're mid laner back, resets or go to the objective. You should be looking for, secondary fightability. And I feel like a lot of teams just kind of leave their soul laner to split push over on the other side of the map instead of split pushing mid lane and getting pressure there, which is just as valuable.
Like I have to admit, like I feel like offlane for now is like one of the lane that is the least utilized by the top team. And I remember like a famous French streamer that always complained about the fact that offlane has absolutely no impact on the game, when I think it's actually like completely untrue, but it's just like people don't really know how to utilize offlane yet.
Yeah, I think that it's probably the most influential lane just because of the amount of freedom that you can bring out to the rest of the map. But hey, the famous French guy might know me. I don't wanna say anything just because I'm American. You can see here that there's a team fight going on inside the red side. That's not really something that I totally agree with, just because of where I was at positionally. And now you can see Shin's kind of getting a little caught out. It's more so just like these are one of our core problems, where we're taking extended fights instead of actually paying attention to where everybody is going. Hey, it's something I'm willing to point out because I already know we have it fixed.
And this drone is still not fixed, however. Still jumping around. But you still manage, like Shin is still like the one that got engaged at level, like at the beginning of the fight, and he's still alive. probably gonna get away.
One of the things that our team really does super well is our ability to play off of each other. So if one person gets caught out, there's usually a good play to follow after because other people are already collapsing, which is super nice.
And I can't wait to see like more team being able to do that, because then that makes team fights so much more exciting, because every single kill you really have to work for it, because everyone can peel for each other. And then like you have the engage of the team fight when you try to get this advantage, both team play well, and then you have the after, like all abilities are almost done and you try to just like finish off kill and make the team fight so exciting to watch.
You can see here too something that I noticed a lot of other teams do. You know, my offlaner went for a roam. Just you can always send your offlaner towards another lane and walk over and just collect this wave while he's not going to be able to get anything. Bait the crunch in here. It's a nice clean kill. It's pretty simple and easy to understand. And now you can see Shins in mid lane also shoving out my mid lane, so we get mid lane turn up.
And
Which is, again, like a lot of the times you don't see any kind of lane movement or anybody doing anything with the space that they have on the map, which I think is something that's super important and should be utilized more often.
Also, like I guess like there is some moment that there is like some spike that are stronger, some character are more needed in near the objective than others. Sometimes it's like better for the certain type of character to just farm to get their next power spike, and so definitely something like I agree that we're still like very bare bone when it comes to the Predecessor competitive scene on those type of things, and so it's nice to point out.
An allied tower's destroyed.
All right, time to head back.
So we're going for the reset. We finished the crest. 15 minutes crest. Is it like a late crest or early crest? I think like I
would
don't
say it's relatively late. You should be looking to complete your crest at about 12 to 13 minutes in reality, but getting shoved out of lane so many times early definitely makes it harder to stack. But I mean, you get it at some point. I was just definitely probably one of the last ones.
Yeah.
You can see how he had it. I think how he ended up getting it at about 13 minutes, which is when he wants it.
And also, like I know, like some people will maybe like contest, like ooh, the drop. Should be a kill.
This on.
Atomic didn't hit the ground, so you're not dead.
That's right. He pulled the Seismic. Very bad silly play, and now he dies for it. And this is just again coming back to, you know, I play bad, I drop, but my entire team's moving the second that I drop because I call the crunches there. So although I make a bad play, if I'm able to get the safety and flash out, my entire team's there and they're just going to collapse and make the other team punish for essentially trying to punish me.
Yeah.
You can see the same thing here again, like I said before. We have the pressure in the mid lane. I'm not really going to get there anytime soon. I might as well just go off and shove another lane, get more CS in my pocket, and continue to scale.
And I think like that's also like a good point, like here that this is why like also like personally like I've been pretty vocal about like get your skirmish very clean, because here we can see because the skirmish is unclean, then you stay alive and suddenly the howitzer is dead, and then like there is like a turnaround. But if like the skirmish is like fully clean, they maybe like disengage earlier and maybe they don't get catch, and so that's why like it's super important.
Sometimes it's good to just get the flash, like you said earlier. You can play around the flash timer instead of trying to force the play. Not every play has to be 100 to 0. You can look for the flash, regank play, and wait for a different opening. So one of the big mistakes here was essentially we re-aggressed in the mid after that catch, and we ended up losing 2 people, which made us lose this Fangtooth. This is essentially where, like, you know, one of the main things that we worked on was kind of noticed. It's, hey, we aggressed too far there, we can't do that. Once we get the pick, we just reset. We knew Fangtooth was coming up, make sure you reset for the Fangtooth.
Yeah. Okay, Pablo is calling a banger fight here.
Yeah, so we were waiting for Cold to back, and then we're looking to aggress. How we got hooked instantly, drop ult, and they broke. But the second that the Drongo backs is when they're weak and they can't silence us in the doorway. So having him back is exactly what we want. We're not looking for the Drongo pick until after we already get other picks.
Ooh, that's a triple shield slam. Unfortunately, like, people die to the tower, but
It's the over-aggressiveness.
so that's a thing I see sometimes, like, and Gideon player particularly, like, that fall for that trap all the time. They see an opportunity to have a lot of people in their ultimate, they go for it, even if it's not like always like a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely been one of my banes to existence as well. Sometimes double rock is just better. Acknowledging that and then making the change to not just run it into 4 people is a good thing to do. And then you can also see at this point in the game too, I'm 2 levels up on Atomic because he just keeps shuffling straight back to mid lane instead of when his team's in mid lane going to a different lane, shoving it out. Our 2 side lanes, we have turret advantage as well, so I think in general it's just about finding times to move around the map and actually get value out of the things that you're doing.
So we can see that here you're kind of like 10 kills ahead, a little bit of CS ahead overall as a team. You were mentioning also like the experience gain, but in the end you mentioned that no communication are starting like win the match in the end. Like I would say, like, just watching, it's probably like maybe like related to comps, because you have kind of a comp that is going to fall off in late game, and so then you kind of need to get the pressure early and keep the pressure on. But I don't know what happened in the rest like of the 15 minutes there, so I'm quite excited to see.
So there's definitely a big blunder on my part that causes the loss.
Okay.
But I have no problem admitting that, because again I already know that when it comes down to it, it was just on me. So I think that will end up turning this. But like you said, there is obviously the issue with the comp of low damage, bringing the Decker in as your ADC instead. But the overall goal would be more so to have your Chimera be your melee ADC, because you have double tank to play around instead. So he doesn't really have to go to tank. He would be more so like your third engage for an ult lockdown after the Steel and Richter.
Allied tower under attack.
Here we can see that you're basically like splitting the map. They're pushing on your left side, and so you decide to pressure like the mid lane as well as an answer, and not trying really like to fight against them. Just trying to get like a trade on the map here. And yeah, Atomic was no mana, and so he ends up dying for it.
How he ult before on the dive, and he didn't respect the bomb ult. So like I said before, Howie is good into the matchup, but the second he doesn't have ult, he's kind of screwed in it. Which is, it's nice for me, but not too nice for the Howie.
Also, it's interesting here because like it was like bomb ult, and like for those that don't know, like the ultimate is trading like magical armor, and so like if you put the ult, of course you're not gonna get like all the tick of damage, but you're actually like reducing the magical armor, so that means that your bomb is gonna do like more damage in the end.
Yeah, you're looking to combo the spells and how they work together. Reading the tooltips helps a lot with that.
Yes. So here we have like close to the respawn of the third Fangtus. I would assume, like, since it was like kind of the goal of the scrim, that probably like we're looking for a fight around there. You can see that Shin is already like in position.
Yep, we're looking to gain the space. Previously, before that mid engagement, we did get deep blue side coverage, so we know that they're starting to shuffle back. Right now, I think we end up actually losing this fight, but we'll have to watch to be sure.
There was like a lot being thrown to you. Overall, we used Testado mainly to zoning the 3 people that were coming. Then we try to play off of your team, like you were telling. You flash in the direction that your team can help you. Everyone is kind of low, however.
Yeah,
trying
we did end up losing the fight, but again, it was specifically because of the fact that I missed this speed gate on the rampage on the second. So I hit speed gate, we secure the dragon, and I think this fight goes entirely different.
I guess like we can like resume that fight because I think it was very interesting. There was like a lot of things to watch, and we can probably like slow it down and try to go over it again. Oh, the Res are back. It's been a while since I've seen that over Sapphire's Mantle. Ah, okay. That wasn't a good flash. So let's watch the fight again. How it was prepared. Try to analyze a little bit the situation. So I guess I rewind a little bit too much. Drone is jumping.
Just on the back here, so we're all running.
So we're going to prepare the Fangtooth here. We have Pablo getting like the positioning with Shin as well. So we get like river buff control overall from the side of even worse timing. And since we have a camera, also like it's very easy to start the objective because camera doesn't take any damage. So it's just free. You can start it and it's not like you're losing anything besides like having camera in the pit, but that's not a big deal. Shin took quite a lot of damage before the fight starts, which can be like a problem for a tank, but overall now you have regrouped with your team, and we see that
we have our dual lane pushing the crunch off instead of picking the objective.
Yeah, like I guess like
the objective right now I believe is around 3,500, so
well, that's very low, so it's probably like not the time to chase then. Okay, so speed gate here. Up, we can start to slow down because this is where like everything going to start. Shin can't really like stop like the flux of player coming towards you, and now you have like a rampage that is not happy, and you're gonna have like 4 people that are going to go on you, which is pretty scary. You still like manage to go for like as soon as you get there. Like this Tesla Dome, I feel like it's still like a very good one because you still like block Osti and Cold Asia and also Atomic, forcing him into an awkward spot. But since you get engaged on, you can't really like use the Tesla Dome on like on a CC of Shin, for instance, because like you have to use it right now, otherwise like you're gonna get killed without spending your abilities. And so like here it's like where I feel like it's super hard as a caster. And so like what is the process going through your mind in that type of situation? Because I assume like you have like here it's a split second decision. You don't have much time to decide what you are going to do. So how do you go about those moments? Like you just trust your experience, or like do you still like have time to process everything? How do you?
So in this moment, I'm aware that the rampage is going to rock me, which is essentially where the gauge starts. The second he ults, he's not going to look for the Chimera rock because he can just cleanse it. He might as well look to pressure me. I also know that Howie's going to go for an ult as soon as I'm unstunned. So really, I'm just trying to block this entry corridor since I see I have 3 people there. I can essentially block off those 3 people, burn them as they walk through because they're going to want to walk through to get to my dual lane. Shin's not really a great target. He still has dash. He can easily get away. He doesn't have wall, but he should have ult here. So it's kind of silly to go for the steal. I know that I'm going to be the main target, so it's more so just drop ult, stasis, and then obviously I'll have the time to flash after because they're not going to look to prep CC on me while sitting in my gadget ult. They have to round the corner entirely, so I'm also not going to be the target at that point. It's going to be 6.
So one thing that is very interesting, like from what I'm seeing here is, and I feel like a lot of players kind of make that mistake, but here you can see like Seismic is not making it. It's basically like you take all the information and you can already process like how it's going to happen, and so you already like prepare your reaction in a sense. Where like most people like kind of just be reactive, here you already like say, okay, the rampage is here, is ulting. You kind of knew exactly what was going to happen, and so you just had to execute on it, and so that's remove like a lot of pressure on yourself. And so we do have seen they still like try to do for the Drongo grenade to stop you from flashing away, but like you said, like probably like the Tesla Dome kind of make Cold like miss a little bit that, and so you're not in the grenade, and so you can just flash away. And here like what I like also is like the flash is of course behind Pablo and Vecran. Like you play with your teammate, and then we see that you're walking out there because okay, it's in the direction of the enemy team, but it's actually like much safer than walking out there because you don't have any control of that space. And so like that's a little thing that also team needs to do better overall.
So the big fix that essentially we identified in this fight is dual lane needs to be playing in pit. If dual lane's in pit, I can still drop the exact same Tesla Dome, except they can push them into the Tesla Dome instead of walking through. And honestly, I think that changes the entire outcome of the fight. We're still able to pretty much pick up all of them here just because of their play in the pit. And the fact that Shin plays this amazingly. He gets a triple bull rush and ends up picking up one by himself. Atomic is a free pick, the second is silenced because he's just stuck in my spells.
And Vectrom doing slightly better than the missed skewer in the pit.
Yeah. And then you'll see here as well, Vectrom's able to wrap back around, then he actually silences the rock of the rampage that would have killed me. So he picks up rock, beats the silence, and then we're able to turn it in. So being able to play out the fight even after, like I said, big mistake. We could have stacked for our second, and then Primal would have been third. Third and Primal on Gadget, in my opinion, is enough to carry this comp as a single damage source. But obviously, we're not able to get that combo. But again, that just comes down to dual lane in the pit. We play around that dual lane pit, and we probably get the Fang as well as the team play after.
But it's something like I still want to point out here is like you said, like Scream is about like to practice those objectives, and so here you can see that you're still like fighting every single time the objective because you want to gain some experience on that like specific things. And so even if you're late, even if you're not in good position, like when you're trying to practice something, it's exactly to get like some experience around those things. So team should like keep sending it in, even if it's not ideal, even if that's gonna end up costing them the game, because that's what you're practicing.
Yeah, losing a fight is completely fine. It's about what you do with the information about why you lost the fight after. If you just kind of take it and don't change anything about it, it's obviously a problem. But if you run these fights through 50 times and then you come up with a solution on how to change the outcome of the fights, it changes your entire game. And I hope more teams start doing it. You'll see a lot of the time teams won't look for the engagement if it's not optimal for them, just because they don't see the point in it. But the truth is you're missing an opportunity to learn.
And also like because like not all game you're gonna have like always like good opportunity. There is like some games that you have to learn to play from behind to make some comebacks and stuff, and so it's so we're looking to pressure. You're still like shoving waves. You want to have like the wave control.
We're pushing out for prime pressure essentially. You can see our side lanes are set for them, and then we also just are getting more and more mid control. If we get the pick on cold, we can go for it for free. More so just a T2 pressure angle.
And so I kind of like the fact that you're a gadget with 3 front lines and you don't walk in front of your front lines. So in a fight they force the engagement on you, but you kind of turn that away.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure in this fight specifically, my ult was 5 seconds off of what I needed it to be. If I had 5 seconds before, the fight would have been a lot better. But again, like stuff like that and timing their engagements or under cooldowns is super important. We're able to stop Cold's back and pick up an in-hit because of it.
That was a very questionable seppuku by Cold in a sense, in my opinion, but good job realizing it and getting the kill. So yeah,
so here.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Like you're here to talk about yourself and your team.
So here, the real call that a lot of teams will be split between is Primal or Prime. Obviously, we have in-hit pressure, and going for Primal with Gadget is super strong. But the Prime kind of negates that since you can't clear the waves for your push. And we end up making the trade, and it's just kind of a stalemate until we toss a team fight.
But it's also like something like, once again, we're talking about what do you gain from your scrim, and here you can see like maybe you already knew that before, but maybe it's also like an opportunity to learn, and you decided like you go for that trade, the enemy team, and so suddenly you discover something about like this, like how the interaction between primal and all-prime can work in specific comp.
My favorite invention.
That's good. CC into Tesla though. That's not that complex, but it always like works wonders. I wonder why.
Yeah, you can see my my Decker's taking a red buff, so no cage there, sadly. Might have been able to do a little more damage to the rare page.
Still, it was a shield slam and a skewer, I think. So I'm still very happy. So here, I guess like the reason of pressuring mid wave is simply like to get priority, because there is nothing to gain in mid wave.
Yeah, so right here is another one of our tosses. We're essentially looking to force an end since we had a pick on the Howie, but in reality we don't have the damage with my ult down, so it kind of negates itself as Zekrom gets picked off. And then I'm pretty sure 6 dies here as well late. Oh, maybe not. Maybe this isn't the fight. But it's also an overconfidence in understanding where our cooldowns are versus what we're actually capable of killing.
Ooh, nice CC chain. But still, like, I kind of like, because like definitely like there was a goal to try to finish the game here, it seems, and so
yeah,
you're still like trying to test your limit as a team as well, of what you can get away.
Knowing how well they can clear versus how well we can fight in the situation, I think it matters a lot.
But yeah.
But again, we're looking over at, you know, I believe it's dual lane turret. We should have forced down that inhib first. We would have double wave, and we probably could have ended the game. But it's about acknowledging those things and actually changing for it. So here's 6 gets picked. I'm pretty sure Shin gets picked as well.
But you still like manage to stay alive, like with 1 HP. You have so much CC that it's actually like pretty impressive. But yeah. So, and the core was very, very low, to be fair, so you were very, very close to get there. And that's also like another point that I think is very, very nice, is the fact that you're forcing those stuff, like that you play with intentionality in a sense, means that when you watch your replay, you know where your intention, and so you can like kind of define like, okay, that was the intention, did we execute it well for that intention? And it makes like the whole process of learning from your scrim so much easier. If you just sit back and play like without intention for the whole game, you kind of like, yeah, the game happened, and you can't really like extract a lot of information from that scrim because you didn't know what you were working for, and so you can't even assess was it a success or not. And so it's kind of nice to see here like the intention. It was very close actually to succeeding of going in there, but then it's easy for you to also like what you should have done better once you watch the replay afterwards. So where is Seismic here? He's still dead, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's still dead. It's the long timers that we push there. So acknowledging it, we get the crunch. Or we maybe don't get the crunch. I could have thought we did.
Oh.
Oh, there we go.
That was...
And now the big problem is essentially Pablo is just stuck in the pit by himself. I'm getting there too late to actually make a difference.
And I wish the drone wasn't like putting me on top of a player every 2 seconds. These drones. But yeah, like here, it was very close. It ended up being a 50-50, I think, of the smite, and
yeah,
like this time...
6 was able to get into the pit, but not able to convert.
Yeah.
And then Pablo ended up jumping in the back of the pit to follow up after. If we did get it, I think we hard in that fight. But not having the regen on our side or the bonus stats really hurts.
An allied inhibitor is under attack.
But once again, like you try to go for the contest 4v5, and once again, like it's mainly about like getting experience in those like high tense situation instead of like probably like you can accept to leave them the all prime and just like play defense and probably still win because you can like probably like find them when they try to siege. But here it's mainly about like kind of we get like the most out of the scrim, and playing for the fight in tense situation is actually like very, very important.
I just remember that call because he's gonna get him. He's gonna sidestep his Q or something, and then the crunch just comes up behind.
I'm gonna like
Oh, man.
outbrain so hard that howitzer. Like I'm getting ready. Like I'm cooking. I'm okay. I'm dead. Well, you have to believe in your dreams sometimes.
Enemy has been slain.
And so here we have Pablo that also get picked, and so that kind of like hard because now that means that they can like go for primal. You don't have Shin, you don't have Pablo. That's probably gonna be Sword Fangtus.
A lot of our CC have fallen. Because a lot of the comp is based more so around the Decker setup into the follow-up with the main tanks on the team.
Yeah.
And once you lose the Decker, it kind of does make it hard to execute for Vecron or for the Steel.
And to be fair, like Rictor is good, but Rictor is not good at forcing like a zone out, and so like without the steal, it was very very hard to break the front line of the enemy team, or like any zone potential.
Richter requires a lot of pre-setup in order to really make him a positive influence in the game. If he doesn't have anything to help him set up skills, he's not really that great of a character.
Double kill.
So I would say like good play by Atomic to completely surprise you by going around the tower. You weren't ready for that, and so they end up like getting another pick, and that makes their strong like even stronger. Their push even stronger. And so that's probably like what end up like making the end of the game.
Yeah, it's the double buff into me not being able to clear the waves, and then they got the pick on Pablo, which gave them red side control. And you know, a lot of these things happen very quickly, and until you look back and you realize what caused the snowball, you're not really going to have an idea of what you should have done differently. But in reality, it's me getting picked before the prime, losing that prime because I'm not there for the initial fight, and then Pablo getting picked before the Fangtooth fight, losing that, and then we lose our red side control, which means we have no coverage, and then it just kind of snowballs from there.
Yeah. It's
But
also like
overall, I
one.
thought it was a really good game to watch for two reasons. One, because a lot of people don't think that NoCo is that strong of a team, but in reality, they're probably just as strong as the majority of teams here. And two, you can have a lead all the way through, but if you make a mistake and it snowballs into two objectives, especially late game, you're going to end up losing the game regardless of how far ahead you are. So, you know, actually making sure that around objective timers, you're not dying or getting picked, and then also executing on your fight around those objective timers, like with Pablo and Vecron in pit, instead of outside zoning the crunch, when you have a gadget that can just drop the ult outside the pit and pretty much keep them out.
Yeah, and that was like a very good game, and I love like everything that we extracted from it. I feel like also it's like when you start like to you make a mistake, it can happen, but it's very important that you kind of find a moment that you get your footing back, because it's exactly what you said here in that game. You were in full control of the game, but one thing like start to go astray, and then like NoCo kind of like jump on the opportunity and never left the gas pedal, and so they just like managed to get the peak that they transform in an objective, another peak, another objective, and suddenly the whole castle crumble. So when like you get like a little behind because like you made this type of mistake, it's also important as a team that you just like step back, said okay, we're gonna recompose ourselves, we're still ahead, let's group up. But also I would believe like definitely like in the normal game in a tournament, like even where Simon will be doing that, here you also like how much can we still fight in those complex situation and see like how much we can get out of that. So yeah, I really enjoyed the game. I really like also like enjoyed the fact that it really like showcase this idea that the scream is to work on something, and then you just try to go for it, and it doesn't matter if it's like good or bad, because now we know what we're working for, and it's very easy to analyze and get better and get like a benefit from the scream. Because in the end, like you said, what is important is what you are going to get from the scream. Is not like if you had like another W to your records. In the end, what matters is like the amount of money you're gonna win at the end of the tournament. not how
So
many.
something that I'll always say is pubs are different from scrims, are different from a tournament game. You should be playing you should be playing your best in all of them, but the way that you actually play should be fundamentally different. Your tournament gameplay should be your understanding of everything that you learn throughout your scrim sets, but your scrim sets are there to actually push you against mechanically talented players and seeing what's possible or what you can do against them, while your pubs are really just running over people that have no idea what's going on. So actually being able to translate what you learned from what your character can do against specific players and teams, and then doing those things consistently on tournament day are what I think are the most important. The actual scrim game itself, I couldn't care less if I win or lose against any team for any reason. It's more so just about learning what specific interactions are happening to cause a win or a loss, and then translating those to tournament day.
Oh, and that's very, very good words, and I hope that a lot of people can learn from those, and especially like probably like the newcomers also into the scene. Like if you start with the right mentality and the right mindset, then you're gonna grow like exponential, super fast basically, and be able to catch up to those top teams. And so little takes for those that are arriving a little bit late. Of course, from Seismic point of view, tomorrow we're gonna see like even worse timing crushing it. He's actually like calling that probably Rest and Relaxation can reach like the final against them. So that should be like very interesting to see this bottom side of the bracket. And also like Rogues needs to be careful about FFG because like it's not as easy as everyone think it's gonna be. So that will be all for tonight. Of course, like tomorrow we have the exciting tournament, the final phase of the PCC. I assume like everyone is excited. Very good production. On the side of the Prime Championship Circuit team, I will have the chance to probably like be on the desk on Sunday only. That will be a blast. As usual, thank you everyone for tuning in. Of course, thank you immensely Seismic for joining. It has been like very, very interesting. I really enjoy my time with you. And also for the people interested, of course, tournament this weekend, which means that next Friday, it's another meta talk when we're going to dive into the data and see like, of course, go over like the event of the tournament and like see if even worse timing have 100% win rate on every single of their pick or not. That should be interesting to see. So thanks a lot, Seismic, for coming. I hope you had a great time and good luck for the tournament tomorrow.
Thank you for having me. Thank you everyone for watching, and just watch the PCC. It's gonna be a fun tournament, at least for me.
And so like apparently we would like to red GPI, so let's go for that. I think like why I'm here in the meantime, I'm just like, you don't see our faces anymore, but they're gonna come back once we're ready to red. Thank you everyone. Have all a wonderful afternoon, wonderful night, depending on when you are in the world. It has been a blast. I will enjoy my weekend and I'll see you all next on Monday. Thank you everyone. Bye bye. We are out. And so, thank you, Seismic.
Thanks for